Hey, digital drawing and painting, it's me, Miss Atari, just checking in for our assignment number 6, Illusion of Space. So in this assignment, there's some options for it, but I want to make a video here to go over what those options are really clear so that we understand what this project is about. The big thing with assignment number 6, Illusion of Space, is that you need to capture at least 2 or more of the different ways artists create the illusion of space in their artwork. So those 6 different ways that artists include the illusion of space is through linear perspective, overlapping, so different elements in their work is overlapped so that we're kind of creating depth when things are built up. Size contrast, so if something is further away, it's smaller, and things that are closer are much larger. Placement of objects, so watching where those are kind of has to do with size contrast. When objects are further away, smaller in the background, middle size in the middle ground, and then the foreground, which is closest, they're much larger. So where you're placing objects kind of plays with size contrast. Color and value. As you're adding in color and value into your painting for illusion of space, really think about where that light source is coming from. Is the light hitting your character from one side and then there's a shadow on the other? If you go with linear perspective option, is the sun in the background kind of fading past mountains? So that would make objects in your foreground darker, objects in the background lighter where that sun is. So detail counts. So as you're making your painting or drawing, the more fine-tuned detail that you have, the better. So since I just went over the 6 different ways to create the illusion of space, which we had notes and videos to watch, or notes to read, here is the mission, so the goal for what you can do for the illusion of space assignment. You can create a 1-point perspective environment. It could be inside or outside. Show some examples. And this option's a little bit more easier or moderate if you're like not really confident with your drawing abilities. This might be something that's a little bit more challenging. For the second option, a character or human, so it doesn't have to be like realistic, so that's why I put character, from a unique perspective, aka dynamic pose. So when we think about different unique perspective and dynamic poses, think about bird's eye perspective, so looking from above down onto a character. Worm's eye, you're looking up. Or any ideas that I put into this Google folder. I'll click on that here in just a second. This option is a little bit more challenging to difficult. So if you're looking like, I love drawing characters, but I want to challenge myself, this is a great option. So if I click on this Google folder, it will take you to a collection of different dynamic poses that I gathered. Some of them are that bird's eye or worm's eye view that I was talking about, but a majority of them are just looking at characters from a different angle. So here we kind of have linear perspective of 2-point perspective in play, and then the Moana example. Come on. The Moana example is a really, really good example of bird's eye. So if you were a bird looking down onto the ocean with Moana flying by on her boat, this is what it would look like. So her head and her hair are much larger, and then things that are further away, her legs, her feet, get smaller. The hand is closer to us, so that's larger. So perspective is in play here. It isn't drawn exactly on. So you're not just like looking at a character and drawing it. You need to think about the dynamic poses, the perspective that your character is in. So use this folder because these are all ideas that I have approved for this. So that's it for mission. So thinking of creating 1-point perspective environment, or looking through the Google folder for some ideas that you could draw a character or human in. So we have 2 options here. For those who are leading towards the 1-point perspective environment, what I did to help draw out mine is made a quick Google search for linear perspective, found a really good example here of a vanishing point, horizon line, and then objects that are towards the vanishing point are smaller. Objects that are closer to the viewer are much larger. So there's some really good examples out there. Lastly, I know there's a lot going through this video here, but last part is I want to show my examples. So for this project, I'm throwing in a new option out there, and I went over this in our live session. You can totally create that linear perspective and a dynamic pose with the size contrast, drawing out a figure. So here, if I was sitting down with this person and their dog, their feet would be much larger, and then their face, their body is smaller because it's going back in space. So this is a really easy way to draw out a character to include that size contrast. I could even put a little bit of placement of objects. If I put the ball, maybe there's a ball here, maybe there's one kind of behind her feet to include that like overlapping. Maybe the dog, I drew him much bigger. Maybe it's a larger dog and it covered over her shoe. That would also play into that overlapping. So that was my sketch for that. But then I really liked the linear perspective. So I went with a landscape that I just kind of came up with. I have a horizon line. I have my vanishing point. And then objects start to get smaller as they make their way towards that vanishing point. These are sketches that I made on paper and then put them onto Adobe Photoshop. So that's just a gist of what the project is about, how to capture some of those different illusions of space. There's 6 of them. And on BB9, just making sure you read over the requirements, which I just highlighted in blue here. The illusion of space assignment must include a strong use of color or value. So we're painting right now. Values to show depth in a light source in the artwork. Colors blended together using the smudge tool or mixer brush tool. If you're using an iPad, building up layers and using a opacity of your brush. 1-point perspective environment option. So if you went with that, need to include objects in the foreground, middle ground, background. I don't want to just see a horizon line, vanishing point, and nothing else is there. Need to include objects. So trees are buildings, or maybe it's people. Maybe you want to challenge yourself a little bit. If it's inside, maybe you're drawing like a kitchen and you have a table that's closer, counters that are further away, and then the back of the kitchen wall in the background. For the character option, for your background, you can leave it a plain color. Make it detailed, so maybe it's a city, you include that linear perspective and your character's kind of coming out from it. Or you can make a patterned background. But either way, whatever you go with, there needs to be a strong use of 2 or more of the 6 different ways to create illusion of space in your artwork. So I would say, given the requirements for this project, you'll probably meet all 5 or 6 of them. So if you have questions while you're working, this video is a good place to start. But if you have questions, you can always send me an email. Have an awesome day.